So, Ms. Dominique McKane, thank you for so much for being willing to sit down with us, kind of set the stage a little bit to let the listeners know kind of what they're going to hear. So, a lady that has a strong sense of self-awareness for self-defense for females. You were one of 4 people, if I'm not mistaken, that were involved in the local stabbing that happened on Louisiana Tech campus. And we're going to kind of get into some of that today. And we want to hear a little bit about your history and kind of where you're going and where your passion is right now. So thank you for being here, and let's get started.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So reading a little bit of your information, it says you were born in California. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that. Kind of how long did you live in California, and what was that like?
I lived in California until I was 7 years old. My parents, they're local natives in Los Angeles, and they don't really come from anything. Los Angeles is typically, especially back then in the 90s and the 80s, it was typically poverty level families. So we moved because my dad's great-grandmother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was a very, very big pillar in my dad's life. So it was just a no-brainer to move here. Yeah.
So 7 years old, you moved to Northeast Louisiana. So I would say most of your adolescence, you grew up here.
Yes.
I don't know if you consider yourself a native or if you still have some California ties.
I consider myself a Louisianan.
Awesome. So growing up, your dad has a martial arts background. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, my dad, he started wrestling when he started middle school, and he wrestled all throughout high school. He was super, super serious about it. He was supposed to perform in the national level, but like I said, he comes from a single income family. His mom was working 2-3 jobs to support 4 kids, so they didn't have the funds to send him to a national level for his wrestling sport. He wrestled a little bit in junior college, and when we moved to Northeast Louisiana, that was the first thing my dad wanted. My little brother, I'm older by 3 years, he really wanted my brother to wrestle.
Right.
And my mom, she looked it up, and there's nothing like that in Northeast Louisiana back then. But there was a small jiu-jitsu gym in West Monroe, and that's how it all started.
So your dad started learning jiu-jitsu at what age do you think? Maybe teenager or?
Well,
or was it?
He started learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So that was after y'all moved here
After we moved here.
Okay, so he was an adult by that time.
He was an adult, yes. He was overweight. He was about almost 300 pounds. He's 5'8", so he was significantly large, and he was about 35, 36 years old when he started.
And it just kind of took off from there with him?
Yes.
So growing up in a family with a father that's really big into the martial arts and kind of sounded like he took it on, how did that impact you and your brother as y'all were growing up?
It made us more hyper aware of our surroundings, made us very aware of the company we keep, made us very just very aware of possible scenarios.
If you had to describe jiu-jitsu to the average person so they would understand, it's not like you're doing high-flying kicks or somersaults.
Right.
How would you describe jiu-jitsu to someone who would have no idea what it is?
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is famously known by a man named Rickson Gracie. He was the guy that went into UFC when it first started, and he was going up against just big, strong men and just winning, just submitting them by rear naked choke or triangles. That's the famous submission, is a triangle. So it really stands out because he is significantly smaller than his opponents, but he's able to have an advantage and finish the fight by a submission.
I've heard someone call it before the great equalizer.
Yes.
You can have a well-educated, much smaller person in jiu-jitsu be able to take on a well-trained boxer or someone in other martial arts and be able to have a fair fight. And in most cases, if that jiu-jitsu person is on point, they'll end up submitting the other opponent.
Oh, and by the way, it's Hoist Gracie, not Hickson Gracie.
Okay.
They all have
Kinda run
very
together a bit.
similar names. Those
Yeah.
the Portuguese names.
So when you where did you go to high school at?
West Monroe.
Went to West Monroe High School. You leave West Monroe. You end up going to college. Did you do any college?
Yes, I went to Louisiana Tech, and then I transferred to ULM, and then I transferred back to Louisiana Tech, and I finished my degree there.
All right. What did you end up getting a degree in?
Exercise and health promotion.
Okay. Awesome. At some point, National Guard come calling to you. So tell us about that experience.
Well, I was 19 years old, and I realized how expensive college was. And my recruiter was my powerlifting coach in high school. And I knew that the National Guard paid for the tuition for college. And then I was told the hefty bonus with certain jobs. And so I figured, why not? I'm kid free. I'm not married or anything. So I went into boot camp about 19 years old.
So,
19, 20 years old.
So how long did you serve for?
6 years.
So 6 years. Did you guys get deployed at all during that 6 years?
Not me. My husband did.
Okay.
And that was pretty tough because I was pregnant with our oldest, and they didn't meet until he was 6 months old.
Oh, wow. That had to sting a little bit, I'm sure. But, we have men and women serving all over the world that have made some unbelievable sacrifices just to be able to ensure that we have the freedom to do what you and I are doing here today.
Exactly.
So do you have any regrets for doing the National Guard?
Not at all. Not at all.
So what are some of the things, if you were speaking to someone young today that's like, I have these goals, but I can't achieve them because I just didn't get quite enough in my tops to be able to pay for that. And I know the Guard offers that, but I don't want to give up my time. What are some of the things that you learned in the National Guard that has helped prepare you for life lessons or that memories that you'll be able to hold on to forever?
So the Army, they do a very good job with preparing soldiers for life outside the military. So there's a lot of financial classes, there's a lot of time management classes, and they help you connect with people that align with your goals, especially if you're interested in college, because I know a lot of people, they kind of bounce around majors and they don't really know what they want to do, which I really liked what that aspect of the military. They showed me a different career field that's very hands-on, and I just realized that wasn't really for me, and that really helped push me into the physical fitness aspect, especially with the military. So I recommend that to all younger kids. I feel like having structure and discipline that the military offers is very beneficial.
So let's talk about the health and fitness side of it. You basically got a degree in that. You touched briefly on, you were in powerlifting through high school. Tell us a little bit about why health and fitness, you have such a strong passion for that, so much that you wanted to make a career out of it.
Exercise is a great thing for the human body. You get all the feel-good hormones, the endorphins after exercising, and it's proven that helps with anxiety, with depression, and it helps your overall health. There's no way around it.
How do you feel when you're taking that person that's starting from day one or day zero, and then you've walked them down that path and you start sharing in some of their success. What is that? I know it's got to be a great feeling for you, but what are you able to see through individuals that you do train when they're starting to recognize those milestones?
It's very special because naturally when you go to a self-defense instructor or a personal trainer, it's because you're at a very vulnerable spot in your life. As a personal trainer, a lot of my clients say that they want to play with their kids and they're out of breath and it hurts to get up and down, and it's very rewarding to know that slowly but surely it's getting better and much more comfortable, and they're able to do a lot more things that they weren't able to do, and they're fitting in their pre-pregnancy clothes.
Right.
And as a self-defense instructor, it's so rewarding because I have a couple of ladies in mind. I won't say anything too specific because I want to protect their privacy, but basically their ex was stalking them. And I mean, not like social media, like she'd see him at the gas pump or see him parked across the street from her work or driving by her house late at night. Very scary stuff. And when they were together, he, would beat her up. And word of mouth travels. About a month after she starts taking my classes, he stops because family and friends are telling him, oh, well, she started doing this and self-defense and all that. And so I guess it made him realize that she's no longer a victim. She's no longer somebody to push around that he was used to pushing around. So that feels really good to my soul.
Let's get into the event that happened on the Tech campus with the stabbing. Why don't you kind of set the day up for us? What were you doing on the campus, and how long had you been on the campus? Where were you at, and what was going on at the time?
Of course. So that was a really weird morning. I had this nightmare that I was running from somebody or something, and it was just dragging me down. It was a very, very just surreal dream. And both the kids woke up, which I wake up so early that they're still asleep. And this morning, all hell broke loose, basically. They woke up and they're crying, and my husband, he was sick, and I had the thought of maybe I should just stay home. It just really isn't like a morning to go out. I should probably stay home. And then I also had a thought that, well, you only have 2 more days as an official college student before grades are due, and then you're a college graduate, so, he'll be okay. Thinking of my husband. If you're just gone for a couple hours, you'll just come back. So I go to the Lambright Center.
And what is that?
It's the gym on campus.
Okay.
And I was there for my practicum. And my practicum was to teach water aerobic fitness to senior adults at the Lambright Center. So the LA Tech, their kinesiology department offers a practicum class for the students for PT, allied health, exercise and health promotion, and physical education majors to have this hands-on learning and teaching the senior adult students that enroll through Tech. So I was there to teach an water aerobic class to senior adults there, which is a great class, my favorite class in my undergrad degree. And it was normal, nothing out of the ordinary. We get all the lanes set back up on the pool, and I go into the locker room and I get changed, whatever. And I'm trying to just rush out of there because my husband's sick and wanted to hurry up and relieve him so he can rest properly. And I wasn't really paying attention until I walked out of the gym, because there was a young man that sprinted past me and jumped in his truck and peeled out of the driveway, or the parking lot, excuse me. And I thought that was super weird because he ran out of there. And so I stopped and I looked around and I saw Jacoby behind me. And I'm a very talkative person. I'll talk to the wall, really. And so I looked at it and I'm like, wow, that was really weird, wasn't it? And he averted his eyes down. He really wasn't talking. He didn't want to say anything to me. And I guess I spooked him.
So this is the man that was the attacker in the
Yes,
incident. Okay,
yes.
so you had an interaction with him, a close interaction, before the event started, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so take us from there.
Yes. And so he didn't say anything. So I was like, okay, this is definitely very weird. So I just kind of shook it off and walked furthermore past on the sidewalk. And then I started hearing screaming, which if you've ever been to the Lambright Center, there's this corner brick wall, and it was right over in that area. And so I looked over and I saw two elderly women being attacked by that same young man.
Now, was this more of a parking lot setting, or was this just an open area or something close to the building?
It's right at the beginning of the parking lot,
Okay.
at the very end of their sidewalk.
So they were in a relatively open space, not like in
Yes.
between cars or anything.
Yes,
Okay.
just in front of the first row of cars.
All right, so you hear screaming that's coming. You look that direction, and tell us what you see.
I see Jacoby on top of them and seemingly looking like he was punching them. So I went over there and I'm yelling to get him to stop, fully prepared to neutralize the situation. And so then he turned around as I was making my way over there.
What's the distance you think we're at from the time you started hollering at him, from the time he, or at the point where he turned around and looked at you? What do you think the distance was?
I think initially I was about 15 feet away from them. And so I walked about a good 5 feet before he turned around, and then we came in contact with each other.
And what did you think was happening during that time? You knew he was assaulting them, but did you know that he had a knife at that point? Did you think he was just physically assaulting with his hands?
Yeah, I thought he was physically assaulting them with his hands, and it wasn't until he turned to me and we were within 5 or 6 feet apart that I saw that he had a knife.
Wow. What was the first thing that went through your mind at that point? Or is it
That I need to embrace to not embrace, but to, sorry, I just blanked on the word.
Close the distance,
Close
maybe?
the distance on him. Yes, exactly.
So your first thought was not to run. My first thought is I got to close the distance and stop it.
Right.
That's got to be really tough to be able to sit there and make that decision just like that fight or flight,
Mm-hmm.
and fight kicked in.
Right. And that's one thing that I'm very thankful for, with my martial arts background and my military background, because we're taught to engage forward, not backwards.
Right. I don't know the exact study that happened, but have you heard the 21-foot rule before? I mean, they teach that a lot when you're getting your concealed carry classes, and that a person that has a knife is within stabbing distance of you, within 21 feet, can more than likely stab you before you can pull a gun out to shoot them at that
Right.
point. So you were well within the danger zone.
Right.
And running from that probably wouldn't have done you any good and maybe would have caused you more harm. So
Right.
you decided to fight at that point. So walk us through some of the details as best you can
Yes.
through some of that, just so we can kind of understand what what that experience was like. And hopefully towards the end, we can share with them some of the things that can be done to better prepare for, even though we think that that's a freak accident or a freak thing that happened, and it's things we only see on the news. This was Ruston, Louisiana. This is a safe place we're supposed to be. This is a place we're not supposed to have any weapons. I mean, it's clearly posted, you can't have weapons on this campus.
Right.
I would argue that that's not being safe by saying you can't have any weapons, because the bad guy's always going to have whatever the bad guy wants to have.
Yeah, people are always going to break the law when they want to break the law.
So kind of walk us through kind of how that fight started.
So he had his hand upwards with the knife like this. And so I tried to grab his biceps with both hands and tucking my head in between my shoulders like this. As you can see, I have these stab marks here, which I closely tucked my arms into my head so I would protect my neck area. But he had a winter jacket on, one of those puffer hunting jackets. So it was very slippery. I couldn't quite grab onto him. So then I decided to fall onto my back because my legs are longer than my arms and my head's further away from danger, like you mentioned. And so I had my feet on his hips, his groin area, and so I started kicking him in the groin, into the abdomen, into the diaphragm, into his chest. And then eventually he kind of doubled over, like I knocked the wind out of him at one point. So I rolled over away from him to run back into the gym. And so I guess he regained his footing. He ran after me and he grabbed me on the back of my shirt. And I just rolled out of I just pulled my shirt up and I rolled out of it, hoping that would just make him go away, but it didn't. He ran after me and stabbed my back and grabbed the back of my bra. And so at that point, I obviously can't take off my bra. So I get to the door and I'm holding onto the door. It felt like the door was just like locked. Because he's pulling me backwards and, you know, it's a heavy door. You got to pull it open. So I want to back up just a minute.
Did you just say, obviously I can't take off my bra?
Right.
So is that a thought that you're having?
Yeah.
I have a man with a knife that's coming at me, but I'm not going to totally expose myself because I still have to get away with my dignity too.
Yeah.
Not making fun of that, but
no, I understand.
It's just how the human thought process works through things, how things can happen so quickly, but so much stuff is actually happening at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing. I just had a million different thoughts and was going all in different directions. And luckily,
sorry for getting you off your track.
It's okay. There was a lady, her name's Debbie, and she's an older woman, so obviously she wasn't like gonna jump on him, but she had the bright idea of distracting him. So just cussing at him, screaming at him, just trying to throw him off as much as she could so I can get back in the building.
So we got another female that is probably old enough to be your parent or older, the way you described her, that sees a man attacking a woman. By this time, you have to be covered in blood.
Yes.
And she comes to your aid?
Sadly, yes. I opened the door. He didn't let go. My bra broke. And Debbie, she's still screaming explicitives at him, and he slashed her across the face. And Debbie said that it just looked like he snapped back into it and just put his hands in his pocket and walked away. And she came inside too. And when I walk into the gym, I get to the front desk, and of course, I'm tunnel vision, so I'm not even sure if people were touching me still. But I was telling the front desk that there's a guy with a knife outside and he's stabbing people. And then I get around the front desk, and I get around the front desk because I felt like that was the safest option.
Sure.
I wasn't sure if he was in the building or not, and I figured if I could hide, that it would buy me some more time. And luckily, the gym manager, she teaches a how to stop the bleed class at Tech. And so she told all of her staff to go get gym towels, and I'm sure they used their entire supply of towels. And there was all sorts of different people on me, on my head, on my arms, on my back.
How many slashes or stab wounds did you end up with?
So I have 2 on my right arm, 1 on my left, 1 on my back, 1 on the back of my neck, and then I have 3 on the top of my head and 1 on the back of my head. So 3, 4, about 9.
Wow.
9, yeah.
How long did it take for authorities to arrive?
Probably took about 5-ish minutes. I really can't tell you. It just seemed like everything was going so slow. But when authorities finally arrived, he asked for a description, and this was like the major wow factor for everybody in that area, because without hesitation, I told him he's about 5'6", 140 pounds, a male with a cowboy beanie on with a puff on the top of his head, and a navy blue puff jacket and black sweats with a red stripe, and he's wearing glasses. And then he asks for his race. I told him that he's an African American male. And so he released all that information, and within 3 or 4 minutes, it got back onto his comms that they were able to arrest him, and everyone was just like, oh, thank God, because he made his way to the main part of the campus, and he even told the police that arrested him that he was going to do it again. And I mean, on the main campus, I mean, that's just where everyone hangs out at. So there's just no telling how much more disastrous that would have been.
How were the other 3 ladies with their injuries?
So the initial 2 ladies, Cynthia and Annie, they were loaded up on just some young man's truck. He drove them to the hospital in Ruston. But unfortunately, Annie passed away from her injuries.
The lady that helped you in the end, what was her name?
Debbie.
Debbie. How's Debbie doing?
She's doing really good. She actually declined medical intervention because, luckily for her, it was very superficial. But it was across her face and arguably could have been in the neck area.
Wow. How long did you have to spend a lot of time in the hospital for recovery to get all these wounds addressed?
Thankfully not. It was probably an entire 24 hours. I thought it would have been a lot longer, but they were like, nope, you can go home. So luckily LSUS, they take care of a lot of stabbings and shootings there.
What about the after effects? I know there has to be, I mean, there's multiple types of trauma. You had the physical, and on some level there has to be mental trauma that goes along with this. How do you work through that? And have you been able to work through it?
Mm-hmm. I see a counselor every 2 weeks, And then the week that I don't see her, I see a trauma specialist. And once a month, I see my psychiatrist. So I did have a really strong phobia of just young men in general. What really triggered me was just their hands in their pockets. And I know that's a lot how a lot of males walk around with their
Sure.
hands in their pockets or in their hood. And that really triggered me for a long time where it didn't matter if I had my husband with me. I was freaking out, going in and out of stores, especially in a parking lot area. There was one time where I was just grocery shopping, just getting something really quick for the house, and I felt like there was a man following me around the store. And I was actually very rude to him. He apologized. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be in your way, but I was really rude to him. And that was just because I was just set off so extremely. But luckily now I worked through it. I did a lot of desensitization therapy, and that helped a lot.
With your martial arts, I mean, you immediately try to go to if you ever watch any MMA and you've got someone that is heavy on the jiu-jitsu side, they want to go to the ground as fast as possible, it seems like.
Right.
You'll even see some guys just lay down as soon as the bell rings to start because that's where they work best. And I've never really thought about it from the angle that your legs are always going to be longer than your arms and you can create distance. And the power you can get from your legs versus your arms is unbelievable advantage versus just, the normal way of boxing. So I get all of that. And it looks like you employed, just instinctually that when that time was coming. But since then, you've really tried to start focusing a little bit more efforts on the actual practical defense side of it.
Right.
So I know that your father has a jiu-jitsu gym. Y'all just had if I'm not mistaken, a grand opening at it. And tell us a little bit about the gym.
So my dad, he teaches wrestling and he teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We have a striking coach. He does all of our boxing. And I teach 2 women. I have a women-only program and I have a kids-only program. We, of course, go over Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but we do a lot of practical self-defense, just techniques that really do work.
We were talking earlier about, some of the easiest defense mechanisms is just situational awareness, just being aware of your surroundings. What advice would you give to people about the downfall of us staring at our phones all the time?
Yes, especially when you're walking around through the store or through the parking lot.
Maybe pumping gas?
Maybe, yes, exactly. Because a lot of us leave our car door open and makes us very susceptible to carjackings. And there was one in Calhoun about a month ago, I believe. Anyways, so it's just so incredibly important to just have your head on a swivel, and just take note of people. Not really mean mug people, but just take note. Okay, he's over there. He looks a little suspicious. Just make it clear that you're watching them. I tell all the ladies, it's not really I don't like fear mongering people.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my line of work, unfortunately, especially in this social climate.
Sure, you're not teaching people to live in fear. From what I gather, you're teaching people just to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought when you woke up that morning that you were going to teach some seniors some water aerobics and have fun doing it, try to get back home to the husband? Would you have ever imagined that you would be involved in a stabbing?
Not at all, especially not at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech is just a phenomenal campus, phenomenal school. I love that place. And you would have never believed that something crazy like that would happen.
So it can happen to you. It can happen to any of us, right?
Right.
So you've got a outside of kind of what your father's doing, you help him in teaching classes with the gym. Y'all have some specialized classes just for like ladies only. You have some co-ed classes. You have classes for kids. But talk to us about the business that you have that strictly focuses on self-defense, being safe. What is that called? What is
SHESAFE Training.
SHESAFE Training. Tell us what that looks like and what people will learn going through that process with you.
Yes. So I have a weekly curriculum. So I'll have a specific scenario every week. This week, we're going over wall defense. What happens if somebody is choking you against the wall? What would you do if somebody's just grabbing your shirt and about to strike you against the wall? And so I address that, and then the next day we'll go over the takedown for it, and then the day after we'll go over how to end the fight, whether that be running away, staying on top until authorities relieve the situation, or punt the person unconscious. So during our free women seminar that we host once a month, we go over environmental awareness, situational awareness. We also practice with all of the ladies. It makes them so uncomfortable. They hate this because you have to get loud. We use our big girl voice. We tell the attacker, we draw a line in the sand, we create a boundary. Stop. You can't come any closer. Stop. You cannot touch me. Stop. I don't know what you're about to do, but go somewhere else. And then the next round, we start yelling, we start screaming, because obviously after the first round, the attacker's not going to listen. The attacker wants to attack you. They want to victimize you. So they're not listening to your boundaries. Some might be deterred, but others, they just want to hopefully scare you into silence. So this next round is really to have, just to create a spectacle. Have people look. Maybe there's a bystander that will come and intervene, or somebody might call the police for you.
Sure.
So that's a big part of our self-defense class.
And I would think that, you talked about boundaries before you came to our sales meeting prior to us doing this podcast. So I was able to get a little more information prior to us sitting down with this. But one of the things that I got out of your talk is how many ladies can relate to being approached in a Walmart parking lot from someone that's panhandling. Mm-hmm. My wife has a problem with any male approaching a female, period, for panhandling. She'll let them know it too. Mm-hmm. But the things that you're talking about, you don't know someone's intention that they're walking up to. You don't know if they are someone that's friendly and is just asking for a couple bucks, or someone that wants to take your life from you, or steal your car that your kid may be in. So I like the idea of you talking about that there's boundaries. And sometimes if I have to act like a fool to get somebody to stop to know that you're not entering my boundary, it's better to be safe than sorry. Because look, the old line, sticks and stones break my bones, words never hurt. Words do hurt, but I'd rather hurt somebody with my words, or my wife hurt somebody with words, than things escalate to a point to where you can't come back from.
Right. You're completely right.
Yeah.
I actually have a really crazy story. My life's just crazy. Anyways, I was at a gas station one night. We just dropped off my husband for his pre-deployment training down at Fort Polk, and I had work the next morning. So, like all ladies, we like to do things at night. I like to pump gas at night. I know a lot of ladies that like to grocery shop at night. Don't do that. Anyways, I was in this empty gas station by my house, and it's not a sketchy gas station either. Well, I'm pumping gas, and there's a box truck that pulls up right on the other side of the stall, and it was a larger, older man. And I took note of the situation, and I had my fanny pack on with my pepper spray. Like a lot of ladies I was a little scared with concealed carrying. So I just had my pepper spray on me, but I had my weapon in my car. Really wouldn't have done anything because it's in my car and not on my person. Well, this man, he's telling me, hey, can you help me pump my gas? And so I thought, since it was like 2020, 2021, how do you not know how to pump your own gas? So I was just explaining it to him. I wasn't being rude. I was just explaining him, oh, well, you do this with your card, and then you pick the gas, and then you pump the gas in the... Well, that wasn't good enough. He, started pressuring me to come over there. Well, I can't read. I need help. And so he took a step closer to me. And so then I raised my voice and I reached in my fanny pack for my pepper spray. And that set him off. He started screaming at me, cussing at me. And I told him very firmly, sir, if you need help, go inside the gas station and get the attendant. So I finished up and I jumped in my car and I took off. But looking back at it, that would have been really awful because he had his door wide open and he wanted me right next to him.
Yeah.
He's significantly taller and larger than me. He could have just picked me up, and I think he could have just thrown me in his van. So I'm glad I reacted the way I did, even though I kind of felt crazy right afterwards, but I still have my life.
I'd rather be viewed as being crazy than having to have someone plan my funeral.
Exactly.
So you mentioned, concealed carry, gun in the vehicle. I always think that everybody needs to be prepared, men and women. There's a lot of men that are my size saying, well, I don't need any of that stuff. But when you're put in a situation and you don't have the proper training, you don't know how you're going to respond. You responded the way you did because of the training that you had, and it showed with how you responded to it. There's a lot of us that are not going to seek the level of training that you're at with the number of years that you've been through with your father and all the jiu-jitsu training that you've been through. Mm-hmm. But there's training that everybody can be a part of. And I'm not going to call the prices out because, this will live out in the internet for many, many years. But I can tell you guys today that this is some of the most affordable training, practical training that I've ever heard of in our area. And I think every woman, I think that there's men. You got SHESAFE, but I'm sure if there was enough men that wanted to have a class, to have a men's class, you'd be more than happy to schedule that too, would you?
Of course, of course.
Safety is so important. I'm a little older than you, but when I was growing up, it was commonplace for me to be able to hop on my bicycle at 8 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, to ride down a mile from my house to go play at a friend's house. We live kind of rural, but there's still a lot of houses. I live less than not even a quarter of a mile from my kid's school. She rides her bike to it, but we won't let her ride her bike all the way by herself because there's just so many stinking crazy people that's out there. I don't know. It's just the world we live in. I know that each generation says, well, back in my generation it was whatever, but it has just really changed. The world is a me world. Mm-hmm. It's I'm going to take care of me. I think I'm getting on soapbox thinking, video games has desensitized a lot of our kids to violence to where it's just not that big of a deal. Or I don't know what was going through this person's mind that did the stabbing with you. I hope he pays a heavy, heavy price for what he did. Mm-hmm. I hope he never sees the light of day. We can't have people that can just that easily go out and take that kind of measure. I believe we all need to be protected. I sit there all the time looking at people at the gas pumps. It's when I notice it the most, that are either on their phone or they never look up, and just how vulnerable most people are when they're just pumping gas. Mm-hmm. How easy it is to either be taken or taken advantage of during those situations. I don't like going shopping, so I can't say
Yeah.
that works on the shopping side of it, but I know society as a whole, we're so distracted. There are some easy steps that can be taken to be better prepared, and you discussed some of those today, but like we talked about, just understanding your surroundings, that's the first step in your safety, not being distracted. But I want to encourage as many people as possible today and moving forward that what you are offering, number one, you have something free every month that somebody can come to and learn a little bit more, that they're going to get value, but to be able to take it to that next level to where they will have that muscle memory, or they will have that instinctiveness to be able to respond if ever put in a situation like that. And it may not be them put in a situation. It may be the person next to them put in that situation, and they're there to be equipped, not to be a victim, but also help someone else out in the process.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, none of us here are going out saying that we want to go out and start beating people up just to be vigilantes in it, but I refuse to be a victim. I teach my kids we are not victims in this house.
Right.
We are going to be prepared as we can be, so that if we're ever in a situation, we know how to respond, or at least have a direction for response.
Yes, exactly. And Louisiana has some very fair self-defense laws, very fair. The stand your ground law, you're able to use lethal force if you think that is necessary. If you think truly that your life is in danger, you are able to use that measure. So concealed carry, or having a weapon of your own, or fighting till you punt the person completely out, neutralize the situation completely. The law is on your side. And that's the same thing with somebody breaking and entering into your home, using measures that you see fit, especially since your life is in danger, or your children's lives in danger. It's became a huge thing that trafficking happens even in West Monroe and Monroe area. And I forgot who told me this, but the I-20 is the most dangerous interstate in America, just because of how quickly you can get on and off of the interstate and be in a different state.
Well, one of the key points that I want people to take away from the conversation we're having today is that no matter the direction for protection you want to go in, you need to be well equipped and well trained.
Right.
Not everybody is going to be right to be able to carry a gun.
Yes.
Some people through life circumstances can't carry a gun.
Right.
But you do have solutions to be able to teach people of how to defend themselves if they found themselves in a situation where they need to be defended.
Yes, and I believe firmly that everyone deserves the opportunity to fight for their lives, because they are worth their peace. They are worth their well-being.
I completely agree with that. I know the more time that passes is probably the trauma that you experience from this lessens over time. I don't think it'll ever go away from you. I'm happy to know that you have definitely sought professional help to get through it. And I would have to assume that it had an impact on you through having professional help.
Oh, yes.
But you being brave enough to come in and share your story with other people, you're not someone from Los Angeles that this happened to. You're not someone from New York City that experienced this. This is small town Ruston. This is small town Louisiana. It can happen anywhere, but the more prepared you are, the better your chances are if you're ever put in that situation. So
Yes, I agree.
thank you for sharing your story with us today. And if there's anything we can do to help promote so that we can get this story out further for you, we're on board with that. And again, I'm going to make a plea to the listeners or the people watching this. I'm not going to call her prices out, but I'm telling you, it's too cheap not to be able to get this experience. And I thank you for making that affordable. I mean, with the rising costs and everything around us, you can't hardly say that anymore, that this is affordable. But what you offer is truly affordable. And thank you for being able to bring this to our community. And thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to come out here and just share what happened to me. and how I want to empower our community.
Thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.